Good afternoon and welcome to the Joy Show. We're back live and in person, and I am so grateful to be back with you this Friday afternoon. TGIF, aren't we glad? The Joy Show is really about the individual, joy being an acronym, just one you. And we're all created unique and special. So it's wonderful to have guests on that we can share these great stories. But to begin, I'm going to begin with the land acknowledgement, and then I'll introduce our guest. I am honored to be living, working, and playing on lands that have been stewarded for millennia by the Mississaugas of the Credit, the Anishinaabe, the Chippewa, the Haudenosaunee, and the Wendat peoples. And it is now home to many diverse First Nation, Inuit, and Métis people. I recognize our history. I realize all that has occurred. And what I know is that we are one. And it is in that oneness that all is well. Miigwech. All right. Well, my guest today is Kim Belew, and she has spent 20 years writing music and giving inspirational talks and workshops. Kim has had many profound life-altering moments. Most notable happened when she was faced with the choice of continuing to live her life in compartments, weighed down by the secrets of childhood abuse, unhealed trauma, and living out patterns that left her with feeling no sense of purpose or meaning. Once Kim discovered her own voice, she became passionate about helping others do the same. Through her continued healing journey, Kim also found a way to give voice to being sex trafficked as a child, and as a result, gave a TEDx talk in October of 2021. Welcome, Kim Belew.
Hey, it's so great to be with you. Good to see you. Thank
It's
you.
so good to have you
Yeah.
here. And it's interesting when we think about your background because you were on the Out of My Mouth show, and the idea of being sex trafficked is like, and I did watch that YouTube video,
Mm,
your TED talk.
mhm,
And when you look at that, it's hard to imagine, but it really puts a different spin on it. But
mhm.
you have worked to find yourself, your true self after the trauma. Tell me a
Mhm.
little bit about that and what you're doing now.
Yeah, I mean, it's first of all, I know that it's a huge miracle, and I feel like um not only am I finding my voice for me, but I'm finding my voice for a whole lot of people who haven't or can't or never
Yeah.
did. So I see it as a bigger mission. I see this, and first of all, not knowing I was trafficked, I was just trying to heal from childhood of, sex abuse, which is what I thought I had.
Yeah.
And I was doing all of this work and just took this it took me down a path of some habits and patterns that were not fulfilling. And I was living my life in all these compartments. And I remember, probably 30 years ago thinking, my God, it would be so nice if I could pull all those compartments together and just be Kim, the same Kim everywhere I go. But I thought it was a pipe dream. And
Mm,
then I ended up at a Unity for the first time 25 years ago,
yeah.
and it was because all of that came crashing down around me. And I began to just start to figure out who is Kim for the first of all, and then just live from that place. And I'm still doing that. I'm still working at it. I think we all are. But
Yes.
man, how much more freedom do I have because I'm living as the one Kim, which means no more shame about talking about my childhood. I had a lot of shame about that. No more
Yeah.
shame about the religion I grew up in. I was ashamed to even talk about that.
Yeah.
No shame about my sexuality. No shame about
Yeah.
being starting out as a rap musician. I mean, all of those things carried shame. And so the more I've released shame, the more I've stood in my power. And so that's really what I want to share with others.
Oh, that's so incredible. Because going through what you went through as a child, and I mean it happened for many years. What did you say, from 11 to 18, basically?
Yes, yes.
That's that's pretty horrific in itself. And then the fact that it took a number of years before you even realized what had happened to you.
Hmm.
That's a powerful story.
Yeah.
So you started off as a rapper, but now you sing.
Mhm.
So tell me a little bit about that transition from
Yeah.
rap to actually singing. I'm curious.
Yeah.
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 So,
So, quite a wonderful transition. So in 2014, I had been rapping for about 10 years and doing it, loving it. And I still love it and I still
yeah.
rap. Um, but I had this story that said, you shouldn't sing, Kim, because you're bad at it. Someone had said this to me, and I heard many years ago that it takes 7 seconds for something to become a belief and a lifetime for us to unbelieve it. And that's
That's right.
exactly what happened. That 7 seconds, someone said, you shouldn't sing. And I carried that story. And I was
Yeah,
reading the Four Agreements again. I call that my Bible.
it's a
And
good
I was
book. Yeah.
reading it again. And it was like, why haven't you tried? Just try. And so
Hmm.
I started to teach myself to play Imagine on the piano and sing along with it. And I found this voice in there that I was like, you know what? I'm going to do this not because I want to be a great national singer, but because I want to claim my power in this and I want to claim a new story that is I am going to sing because I have a song, which is what Maya Angelou says. A bird sings
Hmm.
because it has a song, and so that's how it started.
That
Yeah.
that's beautiful. So do me a favor. I'm gonna put you on the spot. Give us, just a few bars of Imagine.
Ah, imagine all the people living for today. Yeah. So that's without having a note
Beautiful.
or anything.
Yeah.
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 So.
It's interesting. Your voice is beautiful, and I've heard you rap as well,
Mm-hmm.
and I think that sometimes the stories that we're told, the little, and it's those little tiny things that people say to us that tend to really pop in and stay stuck.
Mm-hmm.
I remember, even for myself, that idea that, I can't do anything right.
Mm-hmm.
That was a big one for me to overcome, is, I never do anything right.
Right.
Um, so we build these walls around ourselves because we believe those things we were told as children.
Yes.
We were taught about money, we were taught about relationship, not because people sat down and gave us a lesson, but because we
Mhm.
observed behaviors of the others around us,
Yeah.
or what they said to us, and we picked it up and accepted it.
Yeah. And even as adults, if it taps into some part of us that already feels inadequate, it doesn't take much for us to carry that, and carry on with it. Yeah. So, yeah, it's a
Exactly.
powerful thing to break those chains and to break those patterns.
Yeah, I think it's really important. I know, one of the things I found at the center often is every now and again we'll sing the song "How Could Anyone," and
I love that song.
I do too. And you look around the room and there's like waterworks,
Mhm.
people crying all over the place because nobody's ever said to them, "You're beautiful,
Yeah.
you're perfect just the way you are."
Yeah, you're nothing less than beautiful. Yeah.
Nothing less than beautiful.
Yeah. I love it.
Yeah, yeah, me too. And yeah, I just got some little goosebumps. It's fascinating because those are the stories we're not told. We're not told, "I love you enough,"
Mhm.
and we don't love ourselves, and then we create chaotic, crazy lives.
Absolutely. We're constant. Well, personally, I was constantly, and I still do this, is compare. You're comparing, and
Yeah.
in the world of AI and filters and social media and
Mhm.
perfection being thrown in your face all the time, it's easy to get caught in that.
Yeah.
And I heard Michael Gott say many years ago, comparison is the death of joy, not just the thief of it, but the death of it.
The death of it, I
Yeah,
agree.
and yet we're all very unique expressions, and so no one else can bring what each individual brings, no matter what they have, and so that's
Exactly.
what I have to keep back landing back on. So,
Well, and that's kind of the reason I created this show, is to really remind people that we all have a story. We've all been injured at some point in time or another, to greater or lesser degrees. And we all need air to breathe and food and water. And we know this. And yet it's not the way we necessarily treat ourselves or others. So it's finding that balance where we can love ourselves enough to actually be present in life and take our power back. So what was that journey for you, taking, beginning to sing, taking that, how did that feel when you sang publicly for the first time?
Oh man, first of all, I was a nervous wreck, and I was shaking, and yet there was it's like I stepped into what Abraham Hicks calls the vortex. I
Yeah.
stepped into the vortex, in that moment. I felt like I was standing in Sedona on one of those vortexes, and I just was like, okay, this feels right. When you have those moments. And so no matter how scared I was, like everything was launching me forward. And though
Nice.
I've done many, many performances of Imagine since then, that's the one that felt like, yes, this was the
Yeah.
profound moment that said, this is how you claim your power. This is how you
Mm.
show other people how to claim theirs too. And don't wait till you think you've got it perfected. Step out on the journey right now, and we'll just walk each other home from where we are. Yeah.
That's really, really good advice. I know for me, one of the challenges I had, because, growing up with different abuses and things throughout, um, is that everybody called me Barb.
Mm,
And still people will assume that I want to be called Barb because most people shorten it. And I didn't like it at all, but I wouldn't correct anybody and I wouldn't
mm,
ask. And finally, when I was, oh my gosh, I think I was close to 40, when I went, you know what? I really think it's time to use Barbara. And so I started using Barbara, and it took me a while to be brave enough to correct somebody when they got it wrong. But I've gotten to that place where where I'll sit back and say, "Oh, actually, I prefer Barbara," and they're like, "Oh, okay." It's like it's just not a big deal, and yet somehow, it's one of those things that you take it in stride, going, well, it is what it is. But now I've added my middle name, so I've got Barbara Jean, and it just feels right to me. And people are
mm-hmm.
using it. Most people, a lot of people just call me Barbara, which is fine. And yeah, it's you know getting over that thing in our head, that I had it in my mind that it was too much to ask people to speak 3 syllables.
Right. Right.
Like, that's
Yeah.
low self-esteem, man.
Right. Yeah. And apologizing for asking what you want and need, right?
Absolutely,
Yeah.
absolutely. Yeah, the
Yeah.
apologies. We were talking about that in another show. We were talking about, oh my gosh, oh, I can't remember. It's like we were talking about the idea of women saying sorry.
Mhm.
And like, somebody bumps into you or steps on your foot and you're saying, "Oh, sorry."
Yeah.
That's a Canadian thing. Did you see what Lee wrote in the chat?
Yes,
"Hey,
this
Lee,
is
love you.
that
Thank you for
it's
sharing what you
my
alone."
music partner of mine who is an
Oh,
incredible musician.
fabulous,
Yeah, so
fabulous.
yeah,
Yeah.
so
Yeah, it's so nice to have that support where you have somebody who goes, "Yeah, way to go." I think
mhm.
telling our stories is one of the most important things we can do. Now, you were talking about starting a new project because of something you experienced. Can you share that with our audience? Because that is fabulous. I really love it.
Oh, what I was sharing that I happened yesterday. Yeah. I was part of this bus tour that travels around that's called Street Talk, and they set up chairs in different cities around the country and the world, and they just you go to be a listener and just invite people to come and share that want to be heard for whatever reason. And it was a profound experience for me of people sitting down and just wanting to share their story. And I think I'm all about this village mentality. We've gotten kind of away from the in-person village sharing, looking at each other in the eye behind these screens.
Mhm.
and just listening. People want their story to be heard. Brene Brown says that people
Yeah,
just want to be heard. And
that's
so
right.
I had, it was mostly men, which I found to be
That's
very
fascinating.
revealing, that really wanted to be heard. And so the folks in my home community said, we want to start a chapter here. We want to do this. And so we're going to start a chapter of the street talk and
Wow.
listening. And we have little signs that we hold up that say, what's your story? Tell me what you want to share today. And just
I love
really, I think it can create, a lot of times we can think that there's the other, there's that person out there, and we can create what their story is. And when they sit down and they start talking to you, suddenly they're not the other anymore.
they're not the
So,
other. Yeah,
yeah.
all of a sudden there's a sense of belonging,
Yeah.
and there's a healing that happens when somebody actually listens to you,
Mm-hmm.
not just thinking about the next thing or on their cell phone, but actually listening to what you're saying,
Yes.
and you get to share your story. I
Yes.
love that, and I'm going to get you to send me some details about it because I'd really like to do it here as well.
Absolutely.
I think
Yes.
it's so
It is.
important right
It
now.
is. Yes. And I've thought about wanting to do this in the neighborhood around our unity and didn't know how to start. And so this gives me a great launching place.
Oh,
So,
that's fantastic. That's
yeah.
fantastic. I think, being able to share ideas and concepts is really great, but to be able to talk about, here's my story, here's how I feel about life, here's my hopes and dreams, all that kind of stuff. It's rare that anybody sits and listens to that.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, even in your marriages and partnerships and whatever, it's like you're busy, you're going to work, you're watching your favorite TV show, you're on the phone, emailing or texting people, and there's just a lot of activity going on. When is the time to just be?
Mm-hmm.
And I think that's what's kind of missing ever since COVID. It seems to
Mm-hmm.
have been really increased,
Yes.
and it's tough. People need what we have.
They do. And I can honestly say I've had to check in with myself because since COVID, it's, definitely harder. I have less availability to talk on the phone. Like I'm like, oh, I'd rather text because it's faster, and more convenient. And so I've had to really look into how am I contradicting my own desire, which is,
Yes.
village and community, and really start to step and live inside of that a little bit more. Yeah.
That's an important awareness because as we're living in that place of really brokenness, right? It's still a little broken chipped piece.
Hmm.
I think a chip from the from the show. I can't remember the name of the show. Oh, Beauty and the Beast.
Oh, yeah. Oh, I love Chip.
Chip was great, right? A
Yes,
little
yeah.
crack out of it, but still
Yeah,
beautiful, perfect, lovely.
yeah.
But I think sometimes when we have those little broken pieces, it tends to shut us down from really connecting. It doesn't allow us to connect. And it's like I don't know, a safety thing or whatever, where we really hold back who we truly are out of fear. And
Mhm.
fear, like in A Course in Miracles, it says fear, false evidence appearing real. And
Absolutely.
yeah, and I
Yeah.
went, "Yeah, that's it." And the other
Mhm.
side of it, because it feels the same in the body as, the ugly fear, I always say, "Well, how about feeling excited and ready?" When
Nice.
there's that big opportunity, and like for you with your singing, and you had that feeling of, "Oh my God, can I do
Mhm.
this? I'm all nervous and stuff." Well, that feeling is very similar to when you're in danger.
Mhm.
It's like the same type of feeling. So let's just call it excitement.
It is, and if I've read studies that say that fear and that extreme excitement, it is in the same place, and so
Yeah,
to sometimes we'll respond to it, and run away rather than like standing in it to let the excitement kind of take over. Yeah.
yeah, yeah. And
So.
and we know the power of words is such an important part of our ministries and what we do. And the words that we speak have power.
Mhm.
And so when we're talking about I'm scared, I'm worried, I'm frightened, I'm nervous, I'm upset, I'm angry, when we're saying I am this,
Yes.
become it.
We're claiming it. Yeah.
We're claiming it for ourselves. I am is very very
Yeah.
powerful phrase.
Yeah. I just co-wrote a song. It's not out yet, with a couple of friends, called "I Claim My Power," and it's
Oh, I
all
can't wait
about
to
what's
hear it.
going on right now in the world, and just kind of
Mhm.
reclaiming our own power. And so I helped write the singing parts, and I just wrote a rap verse for it as well. So it's
Oh, what's the rap verse? Can you share it
I'm
with us?
very excited. I don't know it by heart. I just wrote
Oh,
it and sent it over to them to get approval. So otherwise, I would, because I love
yes.
this song
Okay.
so much. I can't wait to share it with everyone.
Oh, I'm so
Yeah.
excited. Well, do let
Mhm.
me know when it's out. And yeah, it's interesting because music takes us to a place that just speaking alone doesn't seem to get us there. I think
Mhm.
we need the combination. I think that's why churches were created the way they were, where there's singing and there's, you know,
Mhm.
some excitement. For me, I'd rather go to, when I think of all the various churches that are around, one of my favorite was in San Francisco, Glide.
Mm.
And what I love about Glide was just the whole energy and vibe in the place when Reverend Clive was the pastor there. There was like 10,000 members.
Wow.
And the choir was incredible.
Nice.
And there was a lot of people who went just for the choir.
Mhm.
That's why they went to church, so they could
Mhm.
hear that choir, and I can understand why. But you could feel that energy. People were up and singing and clapping, and it was all that black gospel.
Yes.
Where everybody's just right in it, and it was like, oh yes, I want more.
Mhm.
It feels so
Yes.
good. And then we go to some of our churches, which are like,
Mm-mm. Nope.
not mine.
Yeah, they joke with me, since I've become spiritual leader. I now do 7 to 8 songs in a service. So
Wow, good for
yeah,
you.
so I'm like, the music can speak just as much as my speaking does, and so I
Absolutely.
don't think, oh, I need to take a whole 20 minutes to talk, if a song can be put in the middle of a talk to really drive something home. And
Yeah.
so I really do put a lot of music in. So
And that's awesome. I remember years ago, I liked the song "How Great Thou Art," and not necessarily all the lyrics, but I really liked the song. And so what I did with it was I looked at the metaphysical interpretation, and my music director and singer, uh, what I had them do was they would sing a phrase, and then I would do the interpretation to
mm,
allow people to go from the Christian background to New Thought. It was like a bridge. And so, and then she would sing the next phrase, and I would go into an explanation from our perspective of what that could mean. And it was really cool. People really liked it. And
mm.
there's so many things we can do to bring it up a notch. And I think music's a big part of that.
Yes, I agree with that. You're reminding me of Aaron McCabe's song "Deliver Me." Do you know that? Which is
I
the
do know
version of
that
the
song.
Lord's Prayer.
Yeah.
And I love that. It's the same thing, taking
Yeah.
something. And I have a version of Amazing Grace on my last album, that
Yeah.
is a more modern version of Amazing Grace.
I love Amazing Grace. And I think it stood the test of time
Hmm.
because of the soul of it. I remember as a teenager, it was on the rock and roll station that I was listening to, CKXL in Calgary. So
Wow.
I can't remember who covered it, but it
Hmm.
actually made it onto it, one of those top 10 rock and roll stations.
Yeah. Wow.
And so I'm like, it's a song that the soul of it is so profound that it reaches across all borders.
Mm.
Name somebody who doesn't know, "Oh Lord my God."
Hmm.
It's like we
Yeah.
know that,
Yeah.
and it's like it's right there. It's fascinating to me that it crossed into the secular. Yeah, it's a big song, but it tells a story
Hmm.
of healing. And I think
Yes.
that's why it has lasted all of these years.
Yeah. Yeah. And there, I do it's not hip hop version, but it's definitely a more, I wanted to do a song that could do a crossover that shows this bridge,
Yeah,
how music can bridge a gap in
of course.
communities. And so and it actually, people love it. It takes a minute for them to get used to the cadence of it, but it's the
Of
same
course.
exact song, but it's just done a little differently.
Can you give
So,
us a little bit of it as we go into our break?
amazing grace, how sweet the sound that saved a soul like me. Yeah.
I
So,
love it. I love
yeah.
it. Love it.
Yeah.
Well, we're going to take a short break. We're at our halfway point here.
Yes.
Do not go away. We are going to be right back. You're watching The Joy Show on the New Thought Media Network with my wonderful guest, Kim Belew, and
Mm.
we will be back in just a minute or two.
Please help us say thank you to our organizational sponsors, including the Hepperlin Foundation, Affiliated New Thought Network, International New Thought Alliance, Science of Mind Archives and Library Foundation, Center for Spiritual Living Denver, Center for Spiritual Living Midtown, New Thought Philadelphia, Planned Happiness Institute, Summit Center for Spiritual Living, One Heart Retreats, Center for Spiritual Living on the Lake, Unity Spiritual Center, Kitchener, Om Center for Spiritual Living, La Mesa, Satya Center, Center for Spiritual Living, North Jersey, Unity of Savannah, and Center for Spiritual Living, Seattle, as well as all of our individual donors. Thank you for making New Thought Media Network a place to be. Please come be you. And remember, like, share, and subscribe. New Thought Media Network, positively inspiring.
And we're back here with The Joy Show, the place where you get to be who you are without apology.
Mm-hmm.
I love that. So tell me how you got into ministry, from your background and all the stuff that happened. Like, okay,
Oh,
how did you get here?
right. Someone just asked me this question last night. I was the least likely. So that's why I always tell people, like, you just never know when you step out on the path and say yes to one thing, there are a bunch of tributaries that happen that you don't expect or anticipate. And this was one of them.
Yeah.
I just was claiming my power first through finding out that I had a purpose. And then it was writing rap music and being the first person that was only a rapper in the New Thought movement.
Yeah.
And so that was wonderful. And I thought, this is great. I'll be a rapper. And then I started singing. and as I was writing music, telling stories. And so I was invited to speak one time at my home church. And from there, people just started inviting me to speak more. And over the years, as I have stepped into my own authenticity, and that at my home unity, we were between ministers, we were without ministers, and I'd been speaking quite a bit. And the board approached me and said, we want you to be our minister. Would you want to do that? And I said, no. I said, no, I do not. And then I went home and I thought about it, as all things. And I kind of got this epiphany of, okay, maybe you can tell them how you would want to do it. And I checked into some things, and there was a special dispensation program. And so I went back and I said, yeah, I'll do it under these conditions. Special dispensation, part-time, which means I can still travel. And they said yes. And so here I am, and that's been 4 or 5 years,
Wow, good for you.
Yeah. So
good for you. Yeah, that's how I became an ordained unity minister, because I'm a CSL minister. I've been for 25 years.
Wow.
And in 2021, 2019, I was invited to speak at a unity church, and I would speak there once a month. And then, like you, the board came up to me and said, would you be our minister? So I served there for the next couple of years. And that's when I got the special dispensation, and then I got ordained. And of course, ordination was easier for me because I just had to do a couple of classes.
Yeah.
I already had most of the training, but it was, it's wonderful to have both. And it really makes a difference, because there are small things that are a little bit different in how we present, but the story we tell is all the same.
Yes. And I speak at Centers for Spiritual Living all the time. And so, lots of alignment because of, I have beliefs that align, that are right there in that alignment with it as well. So,
yeah, it's the same thing. Both of them, the Fillmores as well as Ernest Holmes, were all trained by the same people.
Exactly.
And,
yes.
And when you go back and look at the work of Emma Curtis Hopkins, or my favorite thing to look at is the letters of Myrtle Fillmore.
Yes. Yeah, I have that book.
That woman was fierce.
Yes.
Talk about standing your power.
Yes. She knew and was determined. Yeah.
Yeah, she didn't apologize.
Yeah.
And she did it very lovingly, but she really stood in her power and made sure that if you talk to her about your problem, you got to know you no longer have one.
Right. Yeah. Stop talking about it. Yeah.
Stop talking about it, because
yeah.
that's the thing, is because I think sometimes we tend to, dwell on our problems, and we wonder why they don't go away, because we're feeding them.
Yes, absolutely. Yeah. That the whole affirmations thing, and what we focus on. And, I watched The Secret many years ago, which many of us have, and listened to Abraham Hicks and done all those things. But it really was my journey with cancer back in 2021 that solidified it for me, when I did that. Yeah. So I got diagnosed with ovarian cancer, and it was a complete surprise. And so they told me I had this 4-inch mass. And so I just made a decision after 2 days of grieving and let myself be angry and really scared. I was like, nope, I'm not going to live like this. And so I told everyone around me, if you have fear, I don't want to hear it. And I started doing nothing but positive affirmations, listening to sound healing as I slept, and sending white light to my body. And I started to recognize how I had been talking to my own body for so many years. And so I just started to send light to the cancer, to everything, through every test. And I am scared of medical procedures, and I was anxious to get it done, to go into surgery. I was not scared at all. And when I came out the other side of the surgery and got all the results, that 4-inch was a 1/2 inch. And so, and it was a stage 1, and it was just this huge miracle. And it just showed me, and what it showed me was not that it shrunk the cancer, but that it changed me, so that no matter what the outcome was, I was at peace. And so that's really the ultimate thing, is I want to be at peace with whatever's going on.
Yeah, that's pretty big, because cancer, we see that big C and
Mm-hmm.
I don't want that because it's going to kill me, but it doesn't anymore. I mean, some
Right.
do, of course,
Yes.
but I think how you handled it is exactly how we would handle it in a new thought teaching, is that we're going to make sure. I just had spinal surgery in January,
Mm.
so I'm still limited in the things I can do. But what's interesting is I sat back and I thought, how are you talking to your body? And not necessarily now, but I thought back to, when I was a kid, when I was a teenager. Oh my gosh, everything was wrong when I was a teenager. I think most of us went through that. And then the early 20s and into my 30s and 40s. And it's like I sat back and went, no wonder you've had hip replacement at your age. No wonder you just had, spinal fusion and whatever done, because you have really worked at disliking your body ever since you came to the planet.
Mm-hmm.
That has to stop, right? so it's
Mm-hmm.
like, just going to that place of I love you, I love you. Doing
Yes.
that havening practice.
Yes.
You just, love yourself. And I think that is one of the hardest things for us to do, is to really love ourselves when we don't think we're enough.
Yes. Yes. And I still have all the affirmations all over my house that I had posted up at that time. They're still
Yeah.
everywhere in my kitchen, on my refrigerator.
Yeah.
I am a child of God, therefore I do not inherit sickness. I am worthy. My cells know how to heal, and they're healing themselves now. My body is a beautiful temple, just all of these things, because everyone deals with it, but as women, and aging women and women in the society, we look at our bodies and we think it's not enough, it's not good enough, it's
Yeah.
not flat enough, it's not skinny enough, it's not big enough, whatever. And so
Yeah,
I was a victim of all of that. And so I just was like, okay, time to change that story.
time to change that, because here's the
Yeah.
result of that thinking.
Right.
My body is giving me some trouble. So I think that's a really excellent point in this teaching, is that the words that you speak to yourself are creating and building the body that you live in, this body, and then your surroundings as well. So it's such a great lesson to go into those affirmations.
Yeah, I'm listening to everything I say, and my cells are listening, and so yeah, though I'm not perfect at it by any stretch, as we all slip back into those little
Always. Yeah.
habits, but now I don't slip for as long, and it's like, oh no, you want to come back from that, Kim, and I'm really at the place of wanting to feel at peace within this temple and see it
Yeah,
as a temple, so
exactly. That's
yeah.
how I quit smoking. Was
Mm,
I'd had a spiritual epiphany, and about 6 days later, it was like, wow, this is the temple of God.
mhm,
I don't have the
mm,
right to destroy it. It was like I don't know if I had a dream about it or if I had a vision, but it was like I knew that if I continued to smoke the way I was, then I would be hauling around an oxygen tank by the time I was 40. So it
mm,
wasn't cancer that I thought about, it was emphysema.
mhm,
And I thought, no,
mm,
can't do it. And I butted that last cigarette out and looked at my friend who I was sitting with and went, well, that's the last cigarette I'm going to smoke, or at least until the next one.
mhm. Yeah.
Right.
Right.
And
Yeah.
I've never smoked since. But the interesting thing is I've never had a craving either.
Wow.
Not an hour
Wow.
later, not a day later, not 5 days later, not 6 months later. I just,
Hardest thing I ever did was quit smoking
it
cigarettes.
is.
Yeah, it's a really hard one. Yeah.
And for me, it was, as soon as I went, this is a temple of God, I can't kill it. My
Mm,
conviction was so strong in that smoking became a thing of the past,
mm,
which, a friend of mine drove me to work about 6 months later, smoking. He hands me a cigarette and I went, I don't smoke. And he goes, yeah, right. He's laughing. He gave me the cigarette. I said, Rob, I don't smoke. I did quit. I smoked 4 packs a day when I quit.
Wow.
So it was like there was always a cigarette, no
Mhm.
matter where I was. You could smoke at work in those days. So
Yeah.
it was a continuous thing. But I think sometimes we forget about the power of our words. And we might correct our speaking, but are we correcting our thinking?
Thinking. Yes.
That's a big one. That's a big one.
Yes.
When you think about your past, do you have any emotional tie to the people who hurt you? Like, is there any, like, do you have any residual? I know you remember things, but do you
Mm-hmm.
have residual, like, oh, how could you have done that? Like that anger or resentment or,
I
I
don't have that anymore.
don't,
What I do have is, I'll have the memories, but what I've reached, and it's truly all of it feels like grace to me.
yeah,
But I reached a point several years ago where I became grateful for every single piece of things that have happened because I like where I'm at now. And I know that if any of that changed, then it would shift where I'm at now. And I feel like that there's a bigger purpose involved in it. Not that it happened for that purpose, but that I found the purpose in it. So there's two different things. I
yeah,
speak out because I think it is an absolute thing that needs to stop,
yeah,
but I found my purpose within what happened. And so that makes me, yes, I have pain and I have things that'll come up, but I don't question it. I don't say, why did this happen? Or,
yeah.
any of that. So, yeah.
Oh, that's awesome. That's awesome. I think that's a great story for people to hear, to
Hmm.
be grateful for the journey that you've walked, because it's that journey that brought you to this moment. And if you're
Hmm.
satisfied with your life now, if you feel like your life is on the right trajectory, it's moving in the right direction, of course you're going to feel, more grateful, a sense of greater comfort, whatever.
Hmm.
But it's nice to hear that story,
Yeah.
especially coming from the horrific background that you came from.
Yeah, and I will say, I tell this often, my mom and stepdad, my stepdad was who trafficked me. They died in a car accident when I was 20. And so I I do say, I think some of the grace that I have is because he's not living, and it enabled me a space to do more healing than if I had to see
Wow.
him or face him or be in his energy field. I know this. And so all of it, is profound, and it doesn't diminish anyone else's experience of if they are holding a lot of that pain. I held it
Yeah.
for many years, but I've reached this point and I'm really grateful.
So, what do you think, like, as you reach that point of real forgiveness, which means you're not tied to it anymore,
Hmm.
when you, like, what was your process? Can you share, like, how you managed to do that? Because forgiveness is a tough one for a lot of people.
It is a tough one. And for me personally, I couldn't force myself to forgive my stepdad. What I had to do was continue to do my own healing work and really forgive myself for the things that I had done after I was an adult. So
Yeah.
really, if I look at things, it's like anything that I see out there is something that I usually need to heal within me. And as soon
Yes.
as I can heal that part within me, it's easier for me to let go. And so it really happened organically through my
Yes.
own process of healing. I'm driving down the road one day about 10 years, I don't know how many years ago, and it was just, I felt it. I felt a drop, this moment that it was like, oh my God, it's gone.
It's gone.
And and it's been gone ever since. Yes, I can talk about, I hated some of the things that happened, you know, that he did to me, or that, how could someone think like that? But I don't feel the charge. I don't feel that charge. I don't hang in it. Those are two different
Yes.
things for me. So, yeah.
That's important because a lot of people hang on to, like, the anger, and they're, like, constantly in that place of, I want to get revenge. I want to hurt this person back. And
Mhm.
there's a mistake with forgiveness, because you often hear forgive and forget. Forgive is one thing, forget is a whole different thing.
Mhm.
Because our brain stores it like a computer. Everything's
Yeah,
there. So to
absolutely.
forget, how are you going to forget that you were sex trafficked? I don't care
Right.
how long you live,
Right.
you're not going to forget that. But
Right.
the charge is gone.
The charge is gone.
The
And
charge
how do
is,
you break the chain? For me, the breaking of the chain, it's like people, could say, oh, you have a reason that you would have carried on bad behaviors because of your childhood. I was like, but where does that end? My stepdad probably had a really bad childhood that created his whole thing. And, that's not a reason for me. And so, I need to take my own power and responsibility for myself. And the only way to break that chain was to not feel like I have a reason to act out the way that I had been in early adulthood. So.
Yeah, it's interesting because I think a lot of people don't understand the healing process. They don't understand the idea of forgiveness.
Mm-hmm.
And it's, often misunderstood as, oh yeah, so what they did is okay.
Mm-hmm.
That's a really common phrase when I talk about forgiveness.
Right.
Oh, so it's okay that they did this to me or did that. It's okay that Hitler did what he did. It's
Right.
okay that, it's like we have these stories and then we make them bigger than they ever actually were. We bring in things like, Hitler or whatever, which
Mm-hmm.
is pretty extreme and it's got nothing to do with today. So why am I
Right.
pulling that in? Well, I'm using it for drama. We
Mm-hmm.
love drama.
Mm-hmm.
So
Right.
we're in that funny position where, and I think there's shame too, especially with sexual assault, because there's a pleasure in it.
Mm.
If the person isn't actually, beating us or whatever, it feels good. And so there's that sort of push and pull, like
Mm-hmm.
where I'm going to feel shame because somebody did this, but at the same time, at the moment, there were moments where I didn't want it to happen, but man, it did feel good. So
Mm-hmm.
how do we marry that, our own
Mm-hmm.
sense of guilt or shame around
Well,
those things?
I think talking about it is one, and I don't, I can't say I look back and had pleasure, but I talk about this in my TED Talk, which is went to my stepdad for sex because it was all I knew.
Yeah,
And I think there's a shame in that. I think there's a shame that comes up
yeah,
for people in, you're confused. You don't know, you can't separate what's going on with your physical body from, okay, this is the person that I need to go to for that.
yeah,
And so then you start to think you're responsible for their actions. And
yeah,
so, on the note of forgiveness, like, it doesn't mean you don't talk about it. It doesn't mean, I've had people say, well, if you've forgiven, why you still talk about it? And I was like,
it's
because
important.
I've forgiven, because I'm healed, I can talk about it from this place. I'm not talking about it with hate and anger. I'm talking about it with conviction and passion, so
Yeah,
that it can stop and it can end for someone else, or be the voice
yeah,
for someone else. And so those are two different things, and I do know someone who was abused by their dad, and they loved each other. And yet, so it became that draws a little line there of a deeper kind of healing, because that brings up a whole nother kind of shame. So.
yeah, it really does because, your parents are, when you think back to when you're little, your parents are God. They know
Mhm.
all, they see all, and they're everywhere present. Especially if
Mhm.
you do something wrong, you say a
Right.
swear or whatever, you're in deep, deep trouble. So I think there's a challenge with that because in my mind, this person has power over me. And so I can't really do anything about this at the moment. But the other side of it is, like this person loves me and I love them and I trust them. And so there's
Mhm.
a real mess that comes trying to make sense of all of that. You
Mhm.
love me and yet you're doing something that is actually not loving.
Mhm.
It's so there's a lot that goes on for a young person.
Well, and it goes into adulthood, so then you can translate that into how you are in relationship with others.
Yeah,
For me personally, it's like, oh, so if someone loves me and they hurt me at the same time, it gets confused in the mind,
it does.
and so those are all the parts that have to heal, personally. in order for me to live in a more healthy way and to be able to say, hey, I'm grateful for every part of my journey that got me here. Without that, it's impossible.
Exactly. And I think setting boundaries, there's boundaries that we need to be clear about. I think
Mm-hmm.
sometimes we forget the power that we actually have, and we don't have boundaries. We just sort of fall through life and wonder why we're constantly living with skin knees because we're falling constantly. So, what about boundaries? How does that play in your transformation?
Well, healthy boundaries for me. So I went from being someone who came in, my anger entered the room before anything else, and people, like, I was so guarded. And so it wasn't about needing to set boundaries. I just never let anyone close.
Yeah,
And then when I finally did start to be stripped down and let my authentic, vulnerable self out, claiming my voice, it's interesting to observe where the most fear came up, and it was usually with older men that
yeah,
had this very strong, presence in my life,
yeah,
and I would be afraid to just say, no, that's not okay. And it had nothing to do with sex. It could be anything,
yeah.
any kind of thing. And so it's really just becoming a practice of learning to
Mhm.
say, use my voice and say what I need, and then to remove myself if I need to,
Yeah.
and to just continue to, because that's telling me that I am standing in my own power, that is healing small Kim. Every time I do that, that is telling small Kim that I am there for her, and that whatever happened, that those boundaries were crossed, no longer exist. So
That's really powerful because I think, you talk about little Kim and, I had my little Barbie
mm,
that I think doing inner child work can be a really powerful part of what we do to really bring to the surface our essence so
mhm.
that we can, remove the rubble so we can actually see who we were when we came in. Like,
Yeah,
what was it that we came here to do? Because everybody came here to do something.
right.
And what is that thing? And then how do I do it? Because
Hmm.
the doing and the being are very different. For me, it was like when I was asked, "Who are you?" by my teacher, the thing that came out of my mouth was, "I am love expressing."
Mm.
And and I sat with that for a second, going like, "Why did you say that? Like, you're a
Mhm.
mom and you're a grandma and you're all these things." But the truth is, I'm none of those things. Those are things I do. But
Mhm.
who I am is, this divine essence. So it's interesting to start to look at defining ourselves differently.
Yes.
You know,
Yes.
we've got these labels we've put on each other that we feel like we have to maintain. I try to even
Mhm.
catch myself when I'm introducing my husband. I'll go, "Oh,
Mm.
here's my husband, Pierre." It's like he's a possession. It's not a possession. He's a
Right.
human, right?
Right.
But I'm really trying to be conscious of, oh, and this is Pierre. And,
Mm.
it's like trying to use his name or my daughter or my son instead of going, oh, this is Curtis, this is Arlene, this is Gigi, this is Rye. Like, why do I feel like I have to put that label? So I've been questioning all of those things as I reframe my thinking
Mm.
to be more expansive.
Yes.
Looking at all the changes
Yes.
in the world today, we need to be open at the top.
Yeah, who were you before the world told you who you were? And really it's,
I love that.
it's just if I strip down now that I am, the Kim that was before all of that,
Yeah.
it is merges more and more, and I allow that childlike part of me out. I mean, Disney World is on the top of my dream things to do is this dream trip. I play with Legos. I do all of these things that I never got to do, while also realizing that all that guarding I did, all that anger that I thought made me so tough, actually this strip down is the strongest thing I've ever done. And to show up in the world as the Kim before all that was the most loving, compassionate, person, and that's who I've returned to, and that return to innocence is continual, and
I
it's
love
really
that.
how I shine the brightest. So
Yeah, I like that because I think that is exactly how we come to that place. When we say we're going to do something for ourselves and then we don't do it, we start to really distrust who we are and
mhm.
who we are in the world, and that's definitely uh, that's not a good thing.
Right, right. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. So it's been beautiful to witness myself in my own innocence reemerging and realizing that is my power.
Yeah, it is for
So,
sure.
yeah.
We have got about 3.5 minutes left. Time
Mhm.
has flown by.
Yeah.
And what is one thing that you would like people to take away from this conversation that may be of support for them?
That no matter where you are, what you're feeling or experiencing in this moment, it is not wrong. It is absolutely where you need to be. And that even if it feels like it's the darkest place, even if it's the most painful place, right around the corner, there is hope, and so just keep going and know that you are supported. Find your community. If you don't have it, reach out. But I just never want anyone to feel like, well, I'm doing it wrong. You can't get it wrong. You just keep putting one foot in front of the other. You can't get it spiritually wrong. You can't get it emotionally wrong. As long as you're trying and you're aware, tap into your own heart. It knows the way.
It does know the way. That
Yeah.
is for sure. Well, this has been awesome, Kim. I'm so grateful that you were able to come on, and
Mhm.
I'm grateful to be back doing the
Yes.
shows live again. That's one
Yes.
long break.
Yeah. Well, I'm
Spinal
grateful too.
surgery is no joke, I'll tell you.
I bet, and continued healing for you.
Yeah, no, it's doing really well, so
Mm.
I feel good. So I just want to say you've been watching the Joy Show here on the New Thought Media Network. We are a charitable organization here at New Thought Media, so you can actually donate to the New Thought Media Network and support the good work that's happening here. Also, check out the rest of the programming because there's a lot of good stuff going on. And in the meantime, just remember that you were created unique and special, and there's just one you. And we've got about a minute and a half. Would you sing us out with How Could Anyone?
Oh my gosh. Let me see if I can sing that. How could anyone ever tell you you
Yeah.
were anything less than beautiful? How
How
could anyone ever tell you you were less
could
than whole? How could anyone
anyone fail to notice
that your loving
is
is
a
a
miracle?
how deeply you're connected to my soul.
Oh,
Yeah.
thank you. That's beautiful. Have a great weekend,
Yeah.
everybody. Know that we love you. And thank you, Kim, again. Thank you, Deja, for producing.
Yes.
And you're watching New Thought Media Network here on Friday, and we are back every single week. So do join us again. And in the meantime, just know you were created perfect, whole, and complete. Have a
Mm.
great week. Be sure to like, share, and subscribe. Bye.
Yes. Bye.
On behalf of everyone at New Thought Media Network, thank you for being a member of our virtual family. Your financial contributions help share the New Thought message with people from around the world. Please visit and contribute at www.ntmedia.org/donate. New Thought Media Network. Come be you. And please like, share, and subscribe. Until next time, peace and blessings.